Hello, everyone. I'd like to say a few words of introduction about this unit, Philosophy as a Way of Life. The articles that touch on philosophy as a way of life or exemplify it is, so the article by Pierre Hadot is called Philosophy as a Way of Life, and he is discussing the differences between, as we'll see in a second, discourse on philosophy and philosophy itself, or philosophy as a way of life. Plato discusses philosophy as a way of life, or gives an example, an allegory of the cave, as an example of how we would put philosophy in practice in our lives. Thich Nhat Hanh and Tara Brach. Hanh talks about the Buddhist philosophy of the self, of life, and the universe, and focuses on how we can live in that, to him, reality. He says this is what reality is, so that's a metaphysical, philosophical claim, and this is how we should live. And his focus is on how we should live. And Brock as well talks about Buddhist teaching and how to live in light of that, with more of the emphasis being on living the philosophy. All right, so the article that explains what philosophy of a way of life is by Pierre Hadot. He's famous for a book of that same title, Philosophy as a Way of Life. So he died in 2010. To me, that feels recent, but I guess it's not anymore. And he talks about the article's a discussion of what contemporary philosophers have lost. He argues that philosophy was originally meant to be lived. So in the practice of the Stoics, the pre-Socratics, Plato, Aristotle, meant philosophy to be something that you do, and not just talk about. You talk about it, but then you let it impact your life. So Hadot makes this great distinction between philosophy itself and discourse about philosophy. In contemporary philosophy courses you take, we mainly focus on discourse about philosophy, which is just talking about philosophy. But Hadot says we don't do philosophy itself very well anymore. So the difference between the two is obviously discourse about philosophy is just, this is this theory, this is, what is it that makes the self persist through time? What is the nature of reality? Do numbers exist? Questions about that. So that's discourse about philosophy. But philosophy itself is, according to Hadot, living out the truths of philosophy and letting philosophy affect your life. So you might theorize about what justice is in discourse about philosophy. So what is justice? What is a just city? But when you do philosophy itself, you go out into the world and you try to create a just society. You try and live a just life, a wise life, a good life. So Hadot talks about what is philosophy. Literally, the translation from the Greek, phil means love, and Sophia means wisdom. So philosophy is the love of wisdom. So philosophy, like all other disciplines, is interested in the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of truth, right? But wisdom is slightly different. The connotation of the word is slightly different than just knowledge. Wisdom is broader and involves knowledge about how to live your life and how to apply the truths of the world and to the workings of the world, to your life. So a wise person, for example, someone with knowledge might understand interest rates and banking and saving. They might have that knowledge. But a wise person has that knowledge about interest rates and banking and salaries and all this, But the wise person knows how to apply that in their life. So they know how to, I don't know, pay off higher rate. They actually pay off the higher rate loans before the other types of loans. They know how to invest, but they actually do it. So that's the wisdom part, as opposed to knowledge. So wisdom is different than knowledge. A wise person applies what they know to their lives and lives differently because of their knowledge. So there's many things that I know, but that I would not be wise because I don't actually do what I know. I don't let it affect my life, or I haven't fully taken it in or taken it on board. So that's how wisdom is different than knowledge. Okay, so what is wisdom according to Hadot? Knowing how to live. Wisdom brings peace of mind. It brings inner freedom. It brings cosmic consciousness. It brings a knowing of the right thing to do. And here's, you know how the just city is organized. So this is a political entity that is just and fair. And knowing how to relate to other people. Let me go back for a second. So you'll see here an overlap between Eastern and Western philosophy. So Hadot is French. He's working in the Western tradition of philosophy. But yet, notice how when you read the Thich Nhat Hanh article about practicing Buddhist philosophy, you'll see a lot of overlap here. So having peace of mind, inner freedom, cosmic consciousness, all these things, knowing how to live, knowing how to relate to others. And if you read all his work, you would hear about these other things as well. So there's overlap between here Western and Eastern philosophy as far as what the purpose of philosophy is. So what's the purpose of philosophy according to Hadot? Wisdom, enlightenment, transformation, radical conversion. So he talks about a conversion experience. Spirituality, happiness, cosmic consciousness. Okay, so these are all some of the purposes of philosophy. Bertrand Russell, in his article, The Value of Philosophy, talks about these as well. And again, you'll see here the overlap between Western, the purpose of philosophy in Western and in the Eastern traditions. Peace of mind, yeah. Okay. A strong current in ancient philosophy, so in Stoic philosophy and Epicurean philosophy, is this emphasis on philosophy as a cure for fear and worry. So if we study some ancient philosophy, like in the Stoics, a lot of their writing was about not fearing death. Their writing was about not being worried about losing things. It was about confronting suffering. And again, you'll see the parallel between Western and Eastern. So they say, this is the gist of a lot of their writings. Know that the future is uncertain and death is a constant threat. Because of this, you must be happy now. The present moment is all you have. Life is precious. Do not worry about the future or the past. And they would give arguments for why you shouldn't be afraid of death, why death is nothing to us. They wouldn't just assert these things, but argue for them. Buddhist philosophy. So here's an overview of the Buddhist philosophy that is supposed to reduce suffering. So if you take that on board and live the Buddhist life in light of Buddhist philosophy, again, you wouldn't worry or suffer or fear death. So in the writings by Thich Nhat Hanh, he says we are not a separate self, but we are waves that rise and fall and are ultimately part of the whole or the ocean. Okay, this part is different than Western thought. In Western thought, we are separate, individuated selves. In Eastern thought, what is your true nature? Your true nature is the whole. So what you really are is much bigger than just what you think you are, your separate self. So in this lifetime, for the Buddhist, you are just this energy rising up like a wave. You're distinct in the sense that waves, you can see them and talk about them. You can ride waves. The wave is a distinct entity. Not distinct, but it's something you could point out. But fundamentally, it is just water, and it's part of the whole, and it will return to the whole. So you don't have to fear the birth and death process. The wave comes to being, it goes away, but it was always just the ocean. So you don't have to fear death. So a lot of the Buddhist philosophy is philosophy is a way of life for the Buddhist, is about realizing that truth. And if you could kind of do these practices, meditate on the whole, you'll begin to feel, according to the Buddhist, like you are part of the whole, and that brings joy and unity, and it takes fear away. And a lot of Buddhist philosophy is focused on waking up. So wake up out of this trance that you're in. Stop being so narrow, focused on the self, your narrow plans, and live out the truth that you are part of everything. Let go of controlling and graspingness. This word graspingness is an awkward translation from English from Greek. So Aristotle taught that a lot of suffering is brought about by graspingness. You get what the word means. In Buddhist philosophy, they talk about desire instead. Okay. Philosophy's way of life is living as a wise and enlightened self. It's supposed to make us happy, more fulfilled, lets us live according to what's true, causes us to be the best versions of ourselves, teaches us how to create a good and just society, teaches us how to be good and wise citizens of the world. All right. Thanks for watching this introduction to the section. Enjoy your reading. I've been enjoying reading your comments on perusal. Thanks so much. Okay.